Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's broadcast of Global Woman, brought to you by the Women's Global Leadership Alliance. We bring together weekly, we have a show where we bring together amazing women from around the world to talk about their experiences. We have women who have just incredible insight and experience in the business world, in government, in life in general, and really just have wonderful things to offer our network, advice, and also just to share their wise backgrounds. So today we're so fortunate. I'm so excited to do this interview. We have Lucille Orr with us from Australia. Welcome, Lucille.
Thank you. Hello, Melanie.
Sure.
It's good to be on the program. Thanks for inviting me.
We're so happy to have you here today. Lucille is the president and founder of the Australian Executive Women's Network, known very well for that, and also has a company called the Australian Women in Real Estate. And I'll let you talk a bit about this, Lucille, but to give a little bit of background, Lucille has really dedicated her life since 1968 to causes for women. And also, really, as I said, I'll let you talk a bit about this, Lucille, but really was a pioneer in the business world for women during the 60s when things were really changing. And we're so fortunate today to have you here because we saw a sea change back then of what was happening for women, and you've got this amazing experience, and you broke through tough barriers to become one of the most successful women out there, and we can talk about that. And I really see a lot of parallels to today with the changing economy and with the way that that society and the business world is changing to allow for more creative freelancing type work that's really been helpful for women. So I think we're really lucky to have you here today to talk about how your experiences helped you to be successful during these sort of evolutionary times in the business world. I also want to mention that Lucille has such an interesting, unique background that there's a documentary being made coming out soon about Miss Orr. And so we're very lucky to be able to talk with you in advance of the documentary, and also a book. WGLA is just so excited to have you here today. So if you don't mind, could you tell us a little bit about your background and your involvement with women and industry and the things that you've done that are meaningful for you?
I think I'll go right back to 1966. I worked on one of the first computers ever installed in Adelaide, in Australia, Adelaide, South Australia. In 1961, we had an IBM 360, and I was a key punch operator. And then 5 years later, the computer actually replaced all the married women the year that I got married. So that was really scary. And that was in 1966. Well, you thought we'd have a job forever. And then I married the wrong person, and he was a gambler, and I had enough money because I was a workaholic even then. I had enough money to buy a restaurant because he wanted one and I wanted a home. But anyway, I bought the restaurant. He was the chef. He didn't work in the restaurant at all. So I ended up having to cook the meals. It was a terrible, frightening experience, especially when 12 months later, he gambled and lost it all. So yeah. I would like to say that way back in 1966 through to 68, I learned very, very quickly that you must trust yourself, and you must remember not to depend on anybody, not even a husband. Because then my mother and my little baby sister came to live with me. And there we were. I had no money. When I lost the restaurant to him, I had $20 in my purse. But it didn't take long. I worked really hard again and saved up about £500 or whatever it was. I know it was dollars, but anyway, it just came in. And bought a delicatessen. And then the butcher went broke because it was real hard because they kept widening the road. And so then I took over the butcher shop, and I created the first commercial, really, training centre for key punch operators. And that just being in the place at the right time, it grew so quickly. It was huge, yeah. So I ended up with 3 homes, 3 cars, and 3 businesses in 3 states.
Amazing. Well, you raise a really good point that I think is perfectly relevant to today. You know, a lot of people have been through tough times in the past few years with the way the economy has been all over the world. And I think what you point out is that no matter what your circumstances or who else is involved in your life, women need to realize that we're strong. And if we roll up our sleeves and just take responsibility and make things happen, we have the power to do anything we want, you know, and you've shown that, yeah, and to believe in yourself. So
really what it's all about. And also, you know, convincing a bank manager in those days to give money was really, really fun. But if anyone reads the autobiographies, we've written quite a lot of books, published quite a lot of books. I've got 9 ebooks up on the internet, but I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 here. And this one, under Genesis, in the beginning of the book, has actually got my life story condensed. And that's interesting about how I actually managed to convince bank managers back in those days to give bank loans. It was hard, very hard, and especially when you've got a mother and sister to support.
So what do you think gave you the confidence and the initiative to just do that? What do you think was the fire under you that made you feel okay to do that or made you take those steps?
Okay. I was at a point where I could, you know, when I lost everything, I mean, I had a lot of money. I was ready to buy a house at 21. And I think what you've got to look at, and this is a way, and I must give my mother a pat on the back because she was always a positive person, and I'm lucky because I actually have her personality. And I looked at my situation and I thought, well, I've had 12 months experience in business. I've had experience in computers. I've, you know, run a business. I never thought that I could run a business. I only went to 3rd year high school because that was all my father could afford. So I didn't have the education, but what I'd recognized was the fact that I had practical experience. So I just coupled the practical experience with the fact that I'd had that experience for 5 years working on a computer system that was obviously new and exciting. So by 1968, when I started the Key Punch Centre, it was still very, very, very new. So I started off by helping IBM's clients and ICL and all these different computer companies until I started my own training centre. And then I branched out and had a huge training centre in 3 states. I was employing over 120 women by the early 70s.
I'm so sorry. Outside my office, we've got sirens. It never happens. Thank you. I'm so sorry about that. I'm in the city. We have to expect it, I guess. But I'm sorry for the interruption. So, you know, you really, I mean, go ahead and finish them. Then I've got, you're making me think of so many good things.
Well, what I did after that, after running the running the businesses and then working in corporate as well, I was a manager many times. I was the first female manager for the whole of the TNT Ansett group of companies, which was actually air freight, and that was very, very interesting, being with all men. And my life has always been working with men, having male competition. And I learned a lot by going to lunches in the early days with men. And I guess because I'd had so much experience, I wanted to help more women. So that's when I started the Australian Executive Women's Network, because I wanted to mentor and help more women. I actually worked for 6 years on a mentor program with the New South Wales government in more recent years too, leading up to the Olympic Games. So, and created an award, which today is the biggest award in Australia.
Amazing. You know, and by the way, in the name of your award that you created, and can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, when I started the award, I called it, the organisation was called Australian Executive Women's Network, so I called it the Australian Executive Woman of the Year. And then Telstra came along, and I did it for 5 years in Adelaide and set up 19 branches of my women's network, physical branches. We had functions every month. And the award was all around Australia. There was a branch everywhere throughout Australia. Totally different to these days. When I had radio programs, we had to record tapes and send post tapes to everybody. It was a big job those days, getting communication.
Yeah, when everything was manual.
Huge. Yeah. Whereas now you can just do this, which is just crazy.
You're such an inspiration. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, then when I got the Women's Network going and the award going, I actually created the books. so that the stories of the winners of the award could be documented in the books. And they were very, very interesting. And the Telstra Business Women's Award was taken over eventually by Telstra, because initially it was called the Telecom Executive Woman of the Year. And then they took it over and made it very, very big as well. Yeah, put a lot more money, get other people.
You're such an inspiration. You know, you've really highlighted a few things that are consistent themes that come up in WGLA, in the Women's Global Leadership Alliance. One of them is, you know, we still have today a lot of situations where women are, you know, they're the minority in a business place where we're working with a lot of men. You know, I'm in the legal field. I also work with industry in my background. I've spent a lot of time in steel mills and pig farms and places where, you know, it's mostly men. And I think in the past, you know, so I relate. I really relate to that. In the past, I think I've seen women react in two different ways, and you can't blame them. Women did what they thought they had to do. There's some women who felt they needed to be men and became very competitive with other women. And what's really inspirational, and what I think all women need to do today is, and it's especially important in working today, is rather than feel the need to compete with each other, is to support each other. You know, I heard someone say recently when I was at the Democratic Women's Leadership Forum, where the president of the U.S. spoke and other people, someone said, you know, the first lesson she learned was, I never want to be the only woman in the room, you know, because you tell us, you know, and you couldn't always talk about that, but you made it happen.
Done a lot of, exactly. I've done a lot of speaking. We even put a book together with all the top women in Japan and Australia, and published that in Japan. And I spoke over there to a lot of women's groups. It's been a lot of fun. But one of the things that was probably the best thing that I ever wrote was this book, How to Ask for What You Want and Get It. And that book's helped so many people, women and families, to be able to understand how I got what I wanted, and for them to get it too. And I got asked by the universities and high schools to actually write a textbook. And I hadn't written a textbook, but I got together with a school teacher and we actually created the textbook. So that's been
you know, people don't ask you to collaborate on those things unless you're a good person and I really think if you've got something to offer and you're in the right place mentally. I've really seen that, you know, people want to collaborate with other people who are fair and good and have, you know, creativity in moving everyone forward, you know, so you've been really great. You know, you said a couple of other things that I think are really important as well. When you first talked about it, you said, you know, oh, I didn't have experience in this and my background was this, but you started all of it with gratitude, you know, and I really think the women who are successful are those who are, one, grateful for what they have because they're focusing on the positives, and two, on that same note, you know, we've seen people have challenges. They have roadblocks, whether it's a disability or whether it's background or lack of funds, you know, whatever it is. For a lot of people, it forces them or they step up to the plate and they focus on what they're good at and what they have. And they really can excel with what they have because they've had to compensate for tough areas. It sounds like you did that.
You know, I'm glad you mentioned the word gratitude because, oh, it's coming back with feedback.
Oh, is it? I can hear you just fine.
Okay. Well, the reason I mentioned the gratitude, that you mentioned gratitude, is because that's what I do. I tend to sit down and I say, okay, what are the assets that I have? What can I utilize that's going to help me get this? And one of the things I think has been the biggest asset is my enthusiasm. Just being enthusiastic and getting excited about what I'm going to do and about the computer industry and about women, and, you know, that's contagious. And that's what's helped me get a lot of very, very good sponsorships. And
it helps you and it helps everyone around you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So
and you know, it doesn't worry. Don't worry about age either. One of the things, when I went to New South Wales to help them for 6 years with the mentor program up there, you know, it's a funny thing about life. I've always had things I wanted to do and I thought, how am I going to do this? But we had our Olympic Games in 2000, if you remember, in Sydney, and I wanted to be there to meet business people. And I thought, how am I going to meet business people at an Olympic game? Because I wasn't that interested in the sport so much. Well, a week before the games started, and I'd been up there 6 years, that I found out that there was some sort of a club or something happening down at the harbour. I went down there and I joined something called Business Club Australia. Amazing. Australia set up a virtual club 2 years before the game started, and they invited thousands of business people from all over the world. It was absolutely fabulous.
So it's like Meetup before it ever existed.
Well, I didn't know anything about it. But, you know, the amazing thing about life is that if you know what you want, it's easy enough to attract it to you. It's a strange thing. It's the same with this documentary. I wanted to actually create a documentary, and I didn't know how I was going to do it. So I started to take lessons. I actually joined NIDA and I did script writing lessons. I even hopped on a flight and went to LA and met myself a script writing mentor with contacts in Hollywood last Christmas, and thinking I'd have to do that. But in the meantime, because I had, this is the Aware book that I put out, which is the Australian Women in Real Estate book, all about real estate. But, you know, since I've been in real estate, and I decided working 24/7 for 15 years was a bit crazy. So more recently, about 6 months ago, I sold my rent roll. I'm still selling and buying, but I sold the rent roll, which was the part that was so demanding, you know, the hours. And so since then, the amazing thing that's happened is that the very thing that I wanted at this stage in my life, because I was turning 70, and I thought at 70, I want to be able to inspire more women. 70, I started in real estate at 55 and I'm now 70. So I thought, you know, what can I do? And out of the blue, I met this lady who was a cinematographer. She introduced me to Jethro, who's the producer of the film company, and he said, "Oh, I remember you." He said, "I remember you when I was a little boy. You were on TV promoting your your computer courses, your Key Punch Center courses." And I said, "Oh, that's right." And he said, "You're a trailblazer. I want to do your story." And that's what we're doing. And now I'm going to have this story to travel with.
So there are two things I think that come out of that. One is, obviously you had enthusiasm back then, and when you met him, to make him want to do that. You know, I think another thing that you could share with our network, you talked about the fact that you got into real estate at 55. And, you know, we see a lot of people today who are struggling with their careers, and should they change careers? Should they try to stick with what they have? You know, people have lost jobs, the economy is changing. And you've changed careers several times and done very different things, and you've just adapted, it seems. What advice would you give to women today who are contemplating those decisions?
Okay, I've talked about this in many speeches as well, because when the corporation, and even Telstra had this situation where they knew they had to retrench people, men and women, and so they called me in. And in the How to Ask book, I talk a lot about the fact that we've all been given God-given talents. We all have a birth talent, and a lot of us never ever find out what it is, which is a shame, because artists and singers, they know what their talent is, and they don't even feel as though they're working, because they're actually living in their higher purpose in life. And so the book is all about understanding your higher purpose. So I've been going into a lot of corporations and talking about how to find that talent. So while you're working in your normal job, there's no reason why you can't start looking back about what it was that you loved to do as a child. And usually whatever it was that you loved to do, you were probably born to do that. So then I suggest to people to take it up as a hobby. Just go and take some night classes and take that thing up as a hobby. And it's easy enough then in the future to couple that hobby with your working experience and turn it into a small business. And women are particularly good at this. You know, I've got women in our stories, in our books, where they've actually started something from home at the kitchen sink. Because women will do that. They don't need a lot of money.
Women have always had to be creative. You know, they've had families to take care of. They've, like you said, when you were sent home because married women lost their jobs, you know, women have always and also been collaborative, you know, in those types of situations. And we're seeing it a lot more today with this freelance society, where women are being creative about what kinds of businesses they can start. I think the idea is I think a lot of the women that I'm seeing, one, want to help each other and have the enthusiasm that you're talking about. I think just the idea of starting a business can be daunting for some women, or maybe they need concrete steps, you know. And
well,
are
it
you?
can be. You can be.
Yeah. So
The
are you?
one thing I really
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say the one thing I really enjoyed was when I was invited by the New South Wales government to live in Sydney. My son was only 12 and I became a single mother. But anyway, that was another story. That was a challenge.
Not alone.
But
We have
I've done it all.
women are tough. You know, women are tough and do what we need to do. And, you know, it's, you're an inspiration.
I want to say one thing. The good thing about that mentor program was that the New South Wales set up this program so that women with experience in business could be mentors for women that were new in business, and it was so successful. It branched. It started from one location, and then it branched out through the whole of the country and everything in New South Wales, and it really helped a lot of women to expand their businesses and have confidence. So we were doing seminars, and women that had experience were presenting the seminars. It was brilliant. It was very,
and
very
do you have ideas of where women can get that type of mentoring today?
I think networks like yours, and now, of course, with these online programs, you get it anyway. But it's still nice to be able to touch base and sort of meet people too. I think that's really important as well.
Well, and I'll tell you, you know, since you mentioned it, WGLA, we actually have chapters in many cities now, and we're growing all the time. And we're actually doing some amazing events, just like that, mentoring events for women. And I find we're actually in March, March 10 through 13 is our conference in Las Vegas. For anyone who wants to, yes, it's just going to be. And I have to tell you, go ahead, you're coming.
When I was over there Christmas, New Year last year, I had a contract on a house over there. I always said Las Vegas is the entertainment capital of the world, and I wanted to buy this home. I should have. It was a great little house. Yeah. No,
well, you have another chance to take a look.
I'll have to come over for that.
I have to tell you, I mean, it's the perfect city, obviously, for it. There's so much to do, and really, it's not just about partying. There are really amazing things, and even hiking and things like that. But every time I come away from being around the women in WGLA, I leave like feeling cleansed and excited and inspired. And I hope it's apparent that this is genuine. It's this organization, and we're, you know, just being able to talk with someone like you, women who want to help each other and who really care, and who not only, I mean, it's one thing to just want to help each other or just want to be successful, or just understand the background about life, but to have all of that together. We have so many women in society today who've been through tough times, who have learned from it, and are wiser as a result of it, and now are ready to help each other.
One thing, yes, and one thing that you've just made me remember was that I have premises in the city of Adelaide, in the CBD, and that's been converted to all sorts of things. More recently, it was a real estate office, but prior to that, it was the home for the Women's Network, of course, and we had a restaurant and everything in there. But one thing I found in those days when I was really focused totally on the Women's Network was CEOs, women who were at the top of the ladder, couldn't go any higher. Who do they talk to when they have a problem? There's no one. They can't talk to their peers really as a woman. And so many of those women at that level would call me and they'd say, "Oh, Lucille, I just need a half an hour of Lucille." And I'd just sit there and listen and give them my thoughts. And it was a beautiful, I can't tell you, that to me, that was the greatest gift. I guess it's in my lifetime.
And you're a wonderful person for it. I will tell you, having from the time that we started WGLA, and I've always been involved in women's initiatives as well, like you, with the White House and with other initiatives. It's really therapeutic to not only be a part of it, but to know that there are other women out there who are good and inspired and energetic and care about each other and just are peaceful, you know.
I remember when I was young and I had my Key Punch Centre, and I was training a lot of graduates from school, school university and high school graduates, and I was training them into this new field of computers and also word processing. I had the first word processing training center as well later. But you know, those young girls all got a job because I was really fussy about their qualifications. We gave them an IBM test, and they had to have a certain level of typing speed and accuracy, and every single one of those girls got a job. So there's been nothing that I've done that I haven't been able to put them into work. And you know, the most amazing and rewarding thing that's ever happened to me is when you're at a restaurant, or you're in a movie theatre, or whatever, or you're in a lift anywhere in Australia, and a woman or a young girl or a parent even will come up to you and thank you for what you've done to turn their life around. It's just,
That's amazing.
As my mother said, that is the most beautiful gift that I think you could ever have in your lifetime. It's beautiful.
Well, and I really believe that if you help others, then your success will follow. You know, if you surround yourself with good people, and I mean, obviously you have to work hard to take care of yourself. But then when you give back and you help the people around you, it all comes back around. And it really seems that you've proven that.
And as you say, age is no barrier, no barrier at all.
No, I mean, it's fabulous. You know, you're the perfect example of how women are reinventing themselves.
Yes.
You know, through all of this, what do you think? And I know you said being enthusiastic, and maybe that's the answer. What do you think is, you know, maybe one or more of the most important characteristics about you, or factors or aspects that has made you successful and able to do these things in your life?
Okay, reading autobiographies, being a sponge, because I always say that knowledge is so important, but you can't get better knowledge than actually with you know, talking and listening, being a good listener, and listening to men in the early days and how they were succeeding in business and what they were doing. I think you can learn so much from mentors. So I created my own mentors by being invited all the time, with those days lunches with maybe half a dozen men. You know, I was the only woman, but just and bouncing ideas off them. I love it. I just love it. I think that for me, that was the most stimulating thing of the lot, was actually learning from other people. And women are very, very good at sharing. They're very honest, and they're very good at telling the truth to each other. And they like to be helped. They like to help each other and be helped. It's cool.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's exactly right. Women, especially today, want to collaborate and learn from each other and share. I do think a lot of women, sometimes we all want to help each other. Sometimes women don't always ask for help, and when we feel comfortable, then we're so happy to get it. You know, so I think it's good to encourage women to ask for help when they need it, especially from each other. Well, this is really interesting. You mentioned your books a few times, and the documentary. Where can people find information about you and about your documentary coming out and your books?
If they Google Lucille Orr, O-R-R, Lucille Orr, they'll find. But I've got a website, lucilleorr.au. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Can you say that one more time? I interrupted you. Can you give the website one more time?
Yes, it's lucilleorr.com.au. There's a bit of information on there. But the documentary, at the moment, we're actually looking for sponsors for the tour and for the documentary. So if there's anyone listening that would like to be involved, it'll give them a wonderful opportunity to have their logo on the beginning of the film and at the end of the film. Recognition all the time, you know, while we're traveling, having their logos and information on the back and front of the DVDs. And then when it goes to air on, it's going to go to air on Foxtel. Probably, we were talking about March, maybe even earlier, because we're ahead of our filming, which is great. We will actually play a 30-second TV commercial if they've got one. So it's an opportunity to be involved with the whole of the tour, and I hope to come over there too. So the first thing I'll do is
documentary is about how you went through groundbreaking times in your career and opened the doors for women, and just. You've been a part of history. Is that right? Is that the gist of it?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. And the beautiful thing was when Jethro, as a little boy, even remembered me on TV. I thought that was just amazing, because at this age, at 70, he remembered me as soon as he saw me. And I thought, gosh, I must have changed a lot from when he was a little boy. He's 51 and I'm 70. So, you know, to be remembered by a man that you were on TV in those early days, that was just, it blew me away. It just blew me away. I thought that was
well. Again, there's the gratitude. You know, you're positive about it, and you notice it, and you appreciate it. And I think people realize that as well, and so it makes them want to be a part of what you're doing. You know, and it makes them like it. Okay, so I think we're going to have to wrap up here pretty soon. Maybe we'll close out by asking you. You know, you've really just been through a lot of different things in your life and different aspects. Maybe if you could just talk a little bit about what you think has been the biggest challenge, you know, either on a daily basis in your career, and how you overcame it, and maybe how you think that women should deal with similar types of challenges today. Because I know there are a lot of similar things that are happening today that have happened really throughout your life, although you were a pioneer. You know, but I really, now maybe it was a big deal back then because women were breaking through, you were breaking through the glass barrier. You know, today it's a little bit different. It's an evolution, but I do think that we can have women who can be pioneers today with this new economy and new business structure, with starting more small businesses and things like that. So as far as, what do you think were your biggest challenges and how did you overcome it? What advice would you give to women?
Well, it's interesting that you should ask that question. You know, one of the biggest challenges I've had is actually operating my own real estate company. That is really a challenge. Not many, and particularly I guess at my age, although because I had a lot of experience investing in property and everything else, it was wonderful because people trusted me and loved the fact that I understood real estate because I've been doing it for so long. However, it's still very challenging because you're dealing with a person's most valuable asset. And a lot of what happens in real estate is it could be a marriage breakup or something. So you end up being a bit of a counselor as well. So not many people actually end up owning, or women ending up owning their own real estate company. That was a really big challenge. But going back over all the years and all the things that I did in business, I suppose probably the other biggest challenge was when I had 3 businesses in 3 states. And I was traveling between the 3, and I had homes and cars and everything. It was wonderful when the work was there. But I mean, when you have something like 120 women on your staff and all of a sudden there's not much work that month or that week, I can remember saying to my mother, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And she'd say, calm down and relax because 2 weeks ago you couldn't handle it all. And that's a big challenge in business, especially when in those days you have all those staff and you've got equipment, which was very, very expensive. You've got office leases. That is a very, very big challenge. And I must say that in any business, it's hard to keep you cool at times when you're facing maybe people's emotions or financial problems, or just keeping afloat with everything that you're doing. You have to be so positive always.
Well, you know, you raise a really good point, and actually ending it with that as well. You know, we started out with how your enthusiasm has been so helpful. It's really good to also take a look at the fact that it's hard having a business and it can be tough, and we're not ignoring that, and we're not pretending that's not the case. You know, it can be very tough, and it sounds like you had a lot of responsibility. But if we step away and we take a deep breath and we stay positive, you think that's, you know, and gather our strength. Sounds like that's what you're saying.
Yeah, one of the things I highlighted in that How to Ask book was the fact that I used to reward myself. And I think this is, people forget, you know, I used to, because I was alone, I was traveling between 3 states and I spent a lot of time alone. And it's a big, big challenge when you're running a business on your own, no partners, nothing, just yourself, and you've got all these staff and everything. And I was very young. I was in my very early 20s. So it was very, very challenging. But what I used to do is, it didn't have to cost much. You know, I'd go and sit in the Hilton and have soup. And I just, you know, make myself feel rich, feel as though I was successful. And one day I remember going to a jewelry shop and trying on jewelry, or just going and trying a brand new sports car and taking it out for a drive. Not buying it, just going and trying it and smelling the leather seats. You know, I used to just encourage myself by doing that. So if I had a downtime or I had a problem, I'd say, okay, Lucille, you deserve a break. You deserve a hair set, or you deserve, you know, to take a car out for a drive and feel rich. Feel as though you've achieved.
Be enthusiastic, ask for what you want, work hard, and then reward yourself when you can.
Yeah, perfect. Perfect.
I mean, you know, it's just, you're really inspirational. It's wonderful talking with you. I think we're really fortunate to have this time with you today. And I hope that you can make it to Las Vegas.
Oh, yes. When did you say it was on?
It's March 10 through 13 for our listeners. Women's Global Leadership Alliance, WGLA. We're having our Leadership and Excellence Conference. It's really going to be amazing. We've got wonderful speakers like you, Lucille, amazing people talking about topics ranging from entrepreneurship, work-life balance, and also collaboration and business development, those types of things. And then also just some really inspirational events. We're going to do some award ceremonies, cocktail parties. It's going to be a lot of fun. And like I said, you know, being around all these women who are like, you know, who inspirational and care about each other like you, it's just, and create, developing this network of strong women who want to help each other and do business with each other. You know, it's a really, I encourage all women to do that, you know, whether it's with WGLA or otherwise, but we're really fortunate to have people like you here. So for our listeners, we're going to have to wrap up now. For those who want to see the broadcast, we, first of all, at our website, it's www.womensgla.com. That's WOMENSGLA.com. You can find a TV show listed there. You can see it. Also, we have a YouTube channel called Global Woman. We'll be airing this there as well. And we have a weekly show on Fridays. It airs at noon. It's recorded at 11 and airs at noon again. And a Facebook page. If you search for Women's Global Leadership Alliance on Facebook, you'll find us. It's a closed group for our network. But if you ask to join, we've just got an amazing group of women with daily inspirations and networking and collaborating with each other, businesses, sharing our, you know, services, things like that. So thank you so much, Lucille. It's really been wonderful talking with you today, and we're so fortunate. And we all thank you from WGLA. We thank you together. So thanks, everyone. Great show today, and I hope you have it. Oh, and by the way, we mentioned that Lucille is in Adelaide. It's the middle of the night, and she was kind enough to do this interview from Australia.
It's like it's 3:20 a.m.
You are such a sport. We love you.
I don't need much.
So thank you so much. A wonderful day to everyone, and look for us, womensgla.com, sending lots of positive thoughts and inspiration out to everyone out there. Thanks again, Lucille. Great talking with you. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.